Target audience is important when creating a thriller film, as it is used as a guide for censorship, which means it tells the audience what you can and can't include. For example, if the target audience is aimed at 12 years and younger, then the production cannot contain a lot of swearing and only mild, violent scenes can be used. This is so the violence doesn't encourage young children to also use that kind of behaviour. A 12 film can also not include a lot of gory or blood scenes, as this can be very disturbing for anyone younger than the age of 12. The use of weapons should be shown infrequently so that it also doesn't encourage people to use them. The weapons used in the thriller film shouldn't be used in a negative or inappropriate way. A 15 allows a wider range of scenes and narratives, as a lot more jump scares can be added in and more disturbing and weapon scenes can be used. This is because 15 and over want to be thrilled, and so more jump scares are added in order to keep the audience engaged. More psychological narratives would be used for a 15 so that it creates more tension and suspense for the audience. A typical thriller film that is rated a 15 is Paranormal Activity, and this is because a lot of jump scares are added in, which can be very frightening and disturbing for anyone under 15. A more psychological and gory narrative can be used for a 15, while a more subtle and cliché narrative can be targeted at a 12, for instance, The Woman in Black. Target audience is also incredibly important, as it lets you know in which ways you can attract your audience. Target audience allows the characters to develop depending on who the film is targeted at. If the film is targeted at 15, then teenage characters would be used more so that the audience can relate more to the characters and build a stronger relationship with the victims. A film aimed at an 18 means that the characters can be of a much older age suited to them, and the content included can contain unlimited gory and jump scares. Weapon and violence can also be used throughout. These guidelines are made by the BBFC and help audiences to understand what can and can't be included in a film. My target audience is aimed at 15-year-olds, and this is because my film follows a psychological plot, and the characters in the sequence are teenagers. The victim is shown to be a teenage girl, and this makes it more relatable for teenagers to watch, as they can relate to how the teenager is feeling and her reactions towards the killer. It also enables the audience to gain empathy for the victim straight away, as they are able to put themselves in her shoes and understand the situation she is in, and so therefore can feel scared and worried about her. My target audience is also 15 because it has a wide range of jump scares, for example when the killer suddenly appears unexpectedly while holding a knife. These type of jump scares wouldn't be suited for a 12-year-old, as it is shown a weapon in a negative way and could be very frightening for audiences under the age of 15. My target audience is also a 15 because it contains a lot of gory scenes, especially at the end when the girl gets stabbed, and this could be very disrupting and upsetting for anyone who is under the age of 15. My production doesn't contain a lot of gory and jump scares, and so hasn't been made an 18. I also feel like this wouldn't be an 18 because the audience would get very bored of the production because it doesn't contain enough jump scares. This wouldn't be intriguing or engaging for anyone of an older audience. The characters are more suited to teenagers rather than young adults, as they may not relate to the victim's age. This is because the victim is shown as a teenager, and so young teenagers at the age of 15 can relate. The background of the victim is also a student, and so therefore a strong relationship can be built between the victim and the audience. I feel like the narrative wouldn't engage them as much as it does to a 15-year-old. My thriller appeals to my target audiences, as I have included conventions in there that would both thrill and entice my audience to watch my production. I have included weapons in my thriller film, such as a knife, and this is evident when the killer suddenly appears holding a knife behind the victim. A knife would engage my audience, as they would know that what the killer is capable of, and so they would know that the victim is going to die. This gets the audience hyped, but also gets them worried for the victim, as they have built a strong relationship with her and so they therefore feel sympathy towards her. The knife foreshadows the victim's death, and this intrigues the audience to watch my sequence to find out what happens. My thriller is also appealing to my target audience because the plot uses various jump scares and has a psychological plot of a girl being kept in hostage. The audience wonder how she got there, and throughout the sequence they know the killer is present in the room, but they can't see him, and this engages my particular audience as it makes them wonder whether the killer is going to strike. It also creates jump scares when the killer appears unexpectedly, and this surprises the audiences and creates suspense and shock. The plot is very sinister and is constantly building up tension, and this appeals to 15-year-olds because they like the feeling of being scared and enjoy being thrilled. My audience can build a strong relationship with the victim, as my specific target audience is 15+. This is relatable to my victim, as the victim is also a teenager, and so my audience can understand how vulnerable and naive she is. This enables the audience to feel scared and worried for her as they are able to put themselves in her shoes. The costume of the victim also allows the audience to build a strong relationship with her, as she is wearing a white shirt and black leggings, which implies she is a student. This makes her seem more vulnerable and weak, and most of the target audience are students, and so helps to create a sinister effect, because they can relate to her and understand her vulnerability by being a student and a young teenage girl. It already foreshadows her death, as she has been represented as weak, and compared to her killer, the killer is overpowering and intimidating. The specific target audience can understand the victim's emotions and reactions and feel the same way she is feeling, especially in the presence of the killer. The victim becomes scared and worried when the killer is shown, and the audience can relate to her situation because they allow themselves to be placed in her shoes and constantly become intimidated by the killer. The costume of the killer, which is all black, creates a sinister and overpowering effect, which scares both the victim and the audience. The audience knows straight away that the black costume connotes death and pain, and so instantly feel sympathy towards her. Another way in which the audience relate to the victim is through the narrative. The narrative shows a flashback of the girl on Facebook, and this is relatable towards my particular target audience, as my target audience uses social media such as Facebook, and so they can relate to the situation she is in and understand that she is in a dangerous situation. The audience can also understand that she is a teenager through the way she uses social media, and so this already represents her to be vulnerable and naive, as the audience know that social media can be dangerous, and so they instantly feel worried for her.